Okay, so we're going to get started here. By the way, how many people in here, by a show of hands, already have version 17? Okay. By a show of hands, how many people actually have version 17 already? Okay, only Lori. Okay, Lori. How many people are thinking about upgrading? Gabrielle, I could see you. How many people don't have their software yet but are interested in getting the software or are getting the software? And this is kind of like a walkthrough for you. I don't see any hands there. Okay, so how many people run version 15? By a show of hands, how many people are running version 15? Okay, all right, so Lori, you got version 15 and 17. Okay. Okay, well, the nice news is the majority, working the software has not changed from version 15 to version 17. The only thing that has changed is actually the layout of the design screen, okay? For instance, if you remember, on version 15, these little hotkeys, right here, the simulation screen, the zoom in, the zoom total, the pan, the grid on and grid off, and the guidelines on and off, and all your show tools were actually down here in the bottom left. The create section, select object, and smart design were all here on the left sidebar, just to the left of my color spectrum here. Okay, so they changed some things around. Okay, and the other changes they have made real quick is putting the home menu bar up here. It used to be just artwork, embroidery, and view. Don't worry about the hotfix. I have actually rhinestones capability on this software, so that's why you see it here. Okay, let me just. All right, there we go. Okay, so if you see something on my screen, by the way, and you don't see it on yours, it's because we have a full boat version of the software here. We have fills that you're not going to have. We have different things about this software that you're not going to have unless you purchase them. Okay, but we train on the entirety of the software, so we have to have those fills and we have to have those capabilities available for when we do our training. So, but if you have any questions about any of them, let me know and we'll walk you through it. Okay, a couple of the changes they have done is in the file. Okay, they put in under account. They've actually put your activation of the software under account. It used to be up on the menu bar. So when you install version 17, you want to immediately go to the account, and then you want to update it right from here, or not update it, but activate it from here. Okay. The other changes that they give you is you have up to 5 computers you can activate the software on at any given time. It used to be 3. And by the way, this is a common question we get. What happens if I need a 4th activation? I had 3 computers that have were wiped out. Now I have a 4th computer and I need to put software in. Do I have to buy the software over again? No, you don't. When you install on that 4th computer and you go to activate it, it'll ask you to deactivate one of the previous computers. And then once you deactivate it, it'll allow you the extra activation there. But they have given you 5 with version 17. So you can put this up to 5 computers, which is really nice. You still need to have the dongle key installed on the computer that you're running from. That has not changed. Okay. Any updates of the software that become available, like 17.01 or 17.02, will be also viewable from the account folder. You'll see that right up here. If there's a version available and you have internet, this will tell you that there is a new updated version available. Click on it and it'll automatically update for you. The other nice change is you no longer need the file to save your work or send your work. For instance, it used to have to be on version 15, version 11, version 10, and all the other previous versions before that. In order to save your file, you had to go to File, and then you had to go to Save. And then you choose whether you're saving the design document, which overwrites the original, or save the design document as, which allows you to rename it. Or you would export as embroidery file for the machine. You no longer have to do that. when you have your design complete, you can go to the home, and then you could save it right here, save file, save as. You could print your design information. You don't have to go to file and go to print here. You can just do it right from there, right from the home screen. You could also share the design by email right from here. The embroidery design by email, this is hotfix right here. Or you could share it on Twitter. And when I go to Save As, when I click on Save As, let me just show you. It's going to take a second to open up. You could choose the folder where you want it. And I have it saved to the desktop, so I'll just save it, and that'll save the DSG file. Now, on exporting, when you want to save the design as a embroidery design, you would go to Embroidery, and here you can export the design to your USB stick to load it into your machine. This will save it as a DSP file, which you can see here. Okay. You could also, if your embroidery machine that you use allows you to receive a design from your computer, you could also send it right from here. Okay? No longer do you need to go to File and do all that, save and export. So that's a nice little feature that I don't have to keep toggling back and forth from that. Okay? I'm going to walk through creating a design for you and show you how simple the software actually is. I want you to get comfortable with asking any questions that you may have on any part of the Stitcher or Liberty. I'm going to need by the way, another thing they have changed too is in catalogs, okay? This is where you could find your designs. I don't know if you had version 15, you would have to go on the sidebar over here and you had design files, which you could open up digitized files or machine formatted files. And then underneath that, you used to have image files, which you can actually bring in a raster or a vector image. And you also have motifs. Well, they put it all up here on the home screen here under catalogs. You have three things. Number one, choose the type of file you're looking for, where that file is located, and the image shows you what the designs, an icon of what the pictures look like. So under media files, you have DSG files, which are your design files. You have DST files, which is your embroidery files. Graphic images come in raster, which are your JPEGs, PNGs, and TIFFs, or your vector files. And then you have Motifs Embroidery, and these are just different embroidery files that they give you to work with, sending to your machine and sewing out while you're learning your machine. And they come in categories. So you have Motifs Embroidery, then you choose a category, and you have animals and bugs, frames and borders, symbols, which are Celtic symbols, and then you have the motifs. Okay, these are just different motifs that you have for embroidery. Another nice thing they have changed is the type of your fonts that you get with your lettering. Let me see. Let's go into your pre-digitized fonts. You get all the standard fonts that you're normally used to. Okay, and you can see they put some added fonts in here for purchase. Anything that has a lock is still purchasable, but when you click on that font, like if you want to buy this Alistair font, you just click on it, and it opens up a shopping cart where you can actually purchase other fonts. Okay, these are other fonts that are similar to this one, or in Pack 708. In Pack 708, it includes all these fonts right here. Okay, so as you can see, they have a lot of different fonts here that you can choose. And once you add it to the cart, you can actually, if you have internet, you could buy right online. No longer do you have to go to the service center to buy these things. Okay, it actually gives it to you right then and there. Okay, so that's a nice little feature. Okay, working the software is still the same 4 steps that you're used to. Step number 1, we need a graphic image. Step number 2, we need to edit that graphic image to suit our needs and how we want it to be embroidered. Step number 3, is we need to convert all the parts of that image to stitches and the correct stitches. And step number 4 is we need to save that design or add lettering and save, save that design. So there's 4 steps that you have to do every time that you work this software. So step number 1, we need a graphic image. Now the graphic image can be, it could be either a JPEG, it could be a vector, it could be anything that you want to use. So we're going to go ahead and go to the Home key, and we're going to go to Catalogs. This is where we're going to find those graphics, okay? So I'm going to go to a rasterized image, and let's just go ahead and grab, let's just grab this, Memorial Day. All right. Now, what we want to do with this Memorial Day is we want to simulate this Memorial Day design left chest, okay? Step number 1 is already complete. I have a graphic image in mind that I want to use. Step number 2 is we have to edit that image. Now, if you look closely at this image, there's a lot of gradients here, like in the white, you have a lot of gray. The reds, you have specks of red, and there's lightness of reds on the ends. And on the blues looks kind of marbled, okay? This is because this image is a very low resolution image, okay? When we take a look at that image, let's go back into Home. Let's go to Catalogs. Let's right-click on this memorial design. No, I'm going to go to the desktop. Let's take a look at that image. Let's see, where did they put it? Clip art. When we right-click on that image, we go to Properties. And if you go to Security, or not Security, but Details, and you go to down here, you see we got a 354 pixels by 142 pixels. It's a very low resolution image. This one here, which is a similar one that we found in Details, is going to be a little higher. See, this is actually 563 by 227, okay? The lower these numbers are, the more gradient and the more marbleized your image is going to look. Okay, so when you have a graphic image that's very low res, you want to be mindful of actually grabbing something that actually works a little better for you, a little bit higher. I like to work from graphics that are actually about 900 or higher, or 700 or higher, 700 being the least amount of pixels I want. Let's go ahead and choose that other one, okay? I'm going to show you the difference between the two in size, okay? So there's that one. I think I chose this one. No, it's the same one. Let's grab this guy. You can see that when we go higher in pixels, okay, the image is actually a lot larger. And when I zoom into here, we have still marbling, but the marbling is a little bit more controlled. The white background's a little bit more cleaner than we have on this image, over here, okay? But we can use any one of these. I would rather use this one, but I'll show you how we deal with this one. The first thing you want to do when editing your image, okay, is number 1, you want to clean it up, okay? I don't like those halftones. The reason why is because when we have a JPEG image, we need to digitize this. Like if I want to do a fill stitch for the stars, and I use my the autocomplete for digitizing methods, when I click on that star, it's not selecting it. It's because it's so low resolution that it can't see much of the color that I'm actually selecting. See how it's not selected? Let's try this one over here. When I click on this one, you see it's only seeing a section of that star. So even this image, which is higher in resolution, still needs to be cleaned, okay? When I click on the R here, see it's not selected because of many different colors that it's seeing inside of that O, okay? So we definitely got to edit this so we can actually select something to convert it later. So let's go ahead and choose this one here first. And if you go to Layout, this is where the color reduction or color processing is. The problem with this design is not that it's low resolution, but the problem why we can't convert is because of the way the colors are processed. A lower resolution has a lot lower amount of pixels to make a solid color. So what we want to do is we're going to go to Layout, and we're going to reduce the amount of colors. The first thing I want to do is tell it to see up to 32 colors, okay? And you can see all the colors that it's seeing. Look at all those shades of blue that it actually detects, and all the shades of red and all the shades of white. Well, we only have 3 colors here, so if I reduce to 3 colors, red, white, and blue, and hit filter, we hit return, look how clean our image is. This is before, and this is after. We have a more solid tone. Now when we convert this to embroidery, okay, and we use that auto digitizing method, remember that, the autocomplete? And now when we click on it, see, now it starts to see more of that star, okay? Makes it easier for us to convert that to stitches, okay? So always clean your artwork up, okay? That's always part of the editing. Let's go and do the other one as well. I'm going to click on this one. As soon as you select your artwork, you come up here to the top under Layout. Now, for you that have version 15 still, as soon as you click on your artwork, color reduction will show up on the left of the control bar here, of the ribbon bar. So I need to go to Layout here, and I'll go to Color Reduction, and we're going to see up to 32 colors. See, it still sees a little bit more darker blues than we were getting on the other image, a little bit more of solid reds. So we're going to reduce this to 3 colors. And what we're looking for is actually, if you remember, when I magic wanded this star, that the running ants, we call them running ants, okay, the dotted line, it's not following the true shape of that star. You see how it's jetting out on the edges here? And that's, again, because it's a low resolution. Now, we've cleaned it up as much as possible, but it's still low resolution. When we click on this one here, which has a higher resolution, you see we get a little bit more of a sharper corner. It's detecting the edges a lot better on this one here. Okay? Even when we select the R, you see it's starting to see more of that R. So that's why you always want to choose a file that's a higher resolution. Higher than 700 would even be better. Okay? It just cleans up a lot better. Okay? And my conversion to stitches is going to be a lot easier for me to work with. Hold on 1 second, guys. My dongle key just came out. Let me just let me snap this real quick. All right. Let me put the dongle key back in. All right. Any questions so far? All right. Let's come back. Let's go back to it. All right, guys. All right, here we go. Let's go back to that same design. Catalogs. This one here. Oh. If you just put your mouse over it, it's going to tell you this is 96 DPI. This one here is 150 DPI. This is the one we want. No, that's not it. That's the other one. There we go. Okay. So right away I go to Layout, Color Reduction, reduce it to 3 colors, the primary colors, and return. All right. Now that that's done, now we could the next part of editing is actually sizing our graphic. We want this for a hat design. So the hat can only be no bigger than 2.5 inches in height. Most of your popular hats are actually only 2.5 inch maximum height on the embroidery. That means you want a quarter inch from where the bill meets the panels of the hat. And if you fold where it crests over to the top of the hat, if you fold that down, you want to be 1/4 inch down from there. That gives you a maximum height of 2.5 inches on most common hats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to 2.5 inches. I'm going to set it to 2.25. Okay. Now, a lot of questions I get, like a lot of people will convert this to a vector. There's no need for me to convert this to a vector unless I need to change some aspect about this design. Like, for instance, they don't want this swirl here, okay? They want that removed. I can remove that. I can't remove it from a grouped object like this. I would need to convert it to vector. Okay, once I do that, now I have an ungrouped object, and I can click on this and delete it. I had to change something about the design that the customer did not want. But for the majority of the purposes that we need to do, if the design is exactly what we want, we do not need to convert to vector. Converting to vector does change a lot about our design. Okay, so let's just show you what I mean by that. When I converted this to vector, and I'm just going to go ahead and convert right here, vectorize, return. Okay, look at the shape of the stars now. Okay, you see these lines? This is before. A little bit better. This is after. Okay, and that's because it's a lower resolution. Not many nodes are in here. Look at that node right there. There's not many nodes in there to actually make the conversion. So you can see over here, there's going to be some editing I got to do. I got to bring this all the way down to make this look exactly like the other side. So I do not convert to vector usually. Look at the E. You see how the E tapered down? That's because of, again, the lower resolution. This is what the E should look like. Let me just go back one more time. This is what that E should look like. It should look a little bit more squared off there. This is what it turned out to be when we converted it. Okay, so there's going to be different changes of your design if you do vectorize. So as a habit, I do not convert to vector, but only when I need to change some aspect about the design. Okay. At this point, it also saves me another step. Okay. So at this point now we can actually convert everything you see here to stitches. We're on step 3 now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan my design out. Okay. The swirl, like this swoosh line, is actually going to be all a fill stitch. I want it to lay flat against the shirt, and where the A here will be a satin stitch where it'll stick up higher because the zigzag stitch is a little bit higher. Okay, these stars are not going to be prominent either. They're also going to be flat pattern stitches. Okay, and then the Memorial Day will all be satin stitches, as well as these 2 little swoosh lines here. So I'm planning my design out. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose embroidery. I'm going to choose my stitch type, and it's going to be area with pattern. And right away I'm going to choose my color first. I'm going to choose red. I'm going to set my density. Anytime you have a pattern stitch, it's going to be about 5.85 stitches per millimeter, especially on this size of a design. You can go as small as 5.65 if I'm sewing a very structured cap. I will take the stitch density to 5.65 just to ease up the amount of stitches I'm putting into that hat and create friction. The next thing I do is I set my underlay. All fill stitch needs to have a medium low or a medium type underlay. This is actually a parallel underlay style, okay? Medium low I would choose for smaller designs like you see on here. Designs that are under 2.5 inches, like this whole design is under 2.5 inches. So that means this star is going to be very small, so I would choose medium low. For larger full chest designs or even more prominent parts of the design, like even on this star, I can choose to use the medium density. Okay, it just puts a little bit more hold of the material to the backing. So I'm going to choose medium low for this. Pull compensation, I'm going to use a fixed soft pull compensation because I'm using fill stitches. Now I'm going to choose my digitizing method. This is when I select my magic wand. And I just click on what I want to convert and hit enter. Click on what I want to convert and hit enter. Click on what I want to convert, hit enter. Let's see what we did. So I'm going to go back to select object, turn off my auxiliary, which is my graphic, and I'm going to turn on my simulation view, right here, and take a look and see what I did. So the first thing I want to do is figure out what this is. Oh, that's part of the A. So you could see this is telling me I have to convert this to a vector, okay? Only because of right here. You see right here, I have to cut that so that this A stays a satin. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I don't want the whole thing to be a vector. I just need this part to be a vector. The first thing I'm going to do is set my stitch direction. I always want a slight angle to my stitch direction here. It just sews against the grain a little better. And we'll do the same thing for this. This yellow line sets the stitch direction. I usually set it to like a, moving it up that way is like a -30 angle to it. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So if I vectorize this whole design, it's going to mess up my E on here. It's going to mess up other things of my design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to click on this image, this part of the image. This is the only part I got to vectorize so I can cut this in half. I'm going to right click. I'm going to convert just this part to a vector. Just like that. Okay. So, and then we're going to delete the stitches because I don't need the stitches. Okay. All right. I'm going to go to auxiliary and I'm going to hide let me just click here. There's my vector, okay? And you can see the difference in my vector. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I need to edit this. So I can actually use the split vector tool here to cut this in half, to cut this away. There we go. You see what I just did there? So now I'm going to convert this back to a fill stitch. Okay, so let's take a look and see what we did here. Let's turn off the auxiliary. There we go. So we got our first couple sections here, and I left that A alone to actually be created differently. Okay, so we have a couple more pieces here we have to do. So I'm going to go back to uniform area, choose my pattern stitch. All my settings will be the same as I chose. Okay, let me go back to embroidery. There's our 5.65 stitches. Our underlay is going to be soft, medium low, I'm sorry. And we already have our fixed soft pull compensation. So I got the magic wand, so I'm going to click on this, hit enter. Click on this, and hit enter. We'll go to Smart Object, and I'll change my stitch direction. There we go. Okay, everything's looking pretty good so far. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose uniform area, choose the pattern fill. I'm going to change my color here to blue. And we'll click on the blue star. Click on select object, immediately change my stitch direction. Okay. Looks pretty good so far. Okay, so now there's two ways you can actually do the Memorial Day. I rarely ever convert this to embroidery, and I'll show you why. We'll try to convert this to see how clean it is. But most of the time, I'll actually use the lettering inside of the embroidery tab to actually recreate this, okay? The only thing I may have to do is a specialized R here, okay? Because it's kind of artistic in this design. So to do the, let's convert these automatically. So let's go and go to turning area. We're going to use area with zigzag. We got our color there already. Our density should be 5.5 stitches per millimeter. Our underlay should be soft, and we have a higher letter here, so that's why I'm using the soft 18-point maximum stitch length. The smaller day, I will use soft low, 11 points for the stitch length. Okay, and I'll explain that a little bit when we get to it. My pull compensation is going to be about 10% on this. Okay, so simply click on it. By the way, you can click on all the objects by holding the control button. I accidentally hit the white. And I'll click on the I and click on the L. Ah, See what happened? I clicked on the wrong thing. So let's click on the M, hold the control button, click on the E, the M, the O, the R, the I, and finally the L. Click on Enter, and then we'll click on this little swoosh line, hit Enter, and then I would go to my red. I'm going to go to a soft low, density to 15, a little higher density every time the letter gets smaller. And I would click on this, the A. I keep doing that. There and there. All right, there we go. All right, now the problem I'm going to have with this is the fact that it's not going to look as good as it should, okay? You can see that Y's got some problems. Look how it digitized that end, okay? You can control some of this by manipulating the stitch direction lines and get it to sew better. Like this should have never sewn like this. It should be sewing across like this, just like these stitches are. So you can control a lot of this stuff by doing that, maybe manipulating a couple nodes here and there and get it to sew a little better or look a little better. A lot of times you won't even think to look at this. You know, straighten up your stitch direction lines a little bit so your stitches are sewing directly across from each other. Like this one here, it looks really bad. So let's go ahead and do this. And I'll click on this node here. I'm going to right click, I'm going to add a node. And we're going to put it right here to give this some height. And the same thing over here, I'm going to change this. So there's a lot of editing I got to do here in order to make this start to look right. I mean, look up here. Look how it's like curving in here. And that's because of the lack of a node. It's a curved node right here. That should be a corner node. And then I could shape this in a little bit more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expose the node here. And that should be a straight line node. It's a straight image right there. So once I do that, then I start to get a little bit better shape. But so that's the reason why I don't like to convert automatically like that. So we're going to go ahead and undo everything I did there. And I'm actually going to do this through the lettering. Don't need to do auto conversion here. I may keep the R though, but we'll see. We'll see what I get. There are a lot of websites you can go to actually find fonts that look exactly like the font you're looking for. This is more of a, let's take a look into our lettering and see if we could find a font that kind of looks like this with sharp angles and tight peaks and serifs. So let's take a look. Yeah, this is close. It's just a little broad on the peaks. Okay, so let's go to, I don't have them in digitized fonts. You do have Truetype fonts as well. And I'm going to choose all. I'm just going to scroll down this and see if I can find something that's very close to this, where we have serifs. And I'm looking at the D here. See, the D is the same style font, so it's a little heavy here. The way the curve is, a little heavy on the curve. So we'll try to find one that works. It's got to be a serifed style font. This looks pretty close, Constantia. Looks pretty close, but not exactly. And I'll try to get it exactly as I possibly can. If not, I may have to go on a website like dafont.com and see if I could find it there and download it and add it to my font folder. So these are all non-serif. Serifs are those little feet that are at the end of your letters. And you can see I have those here. See, these are all serifs here. So you're looking for a serifed font. And this might work good. This looks almost like it right here. Let's go ahead and do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, now that I got Palantino Linotype, I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to measure the height of my font here. Just get a rough, about 3/4 of an inch in height. So that's going to help me out. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Lettering. Oh, I got to go to Select Object first. All right, there we go. All right, so we're going to go to Truetype. We're going to choose that Palantino. And I'll scroll down the list, grab it real quick. Still in the M's. There it is. And we're going to set our height of the font to 0.80. Hit Enter whenever you change that. And now we'll type in what we want. MEMORI. And I'll stop right there. And I want that font to be blue. Highlight. And let's go ahead and hit Enter. The font will come down. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up. It's not exactly the font, but it's not really too bad. It's very similar. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change, okay, let me hit Enter. And let's go ahead and click on again. And what I got to do is now change some settings about this, okay? So I'm going to position each font. Oh, hold on. I'm going to line up the M. And then grab these grips and slide my letters into place. Do the same thing for the R. And then we do the same thing for the I. There we go. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to set my settings, okay, my pole compensation, underlays, and all that stuff. So the stitches I want on this is 5.50 stitches per millimeter. My pole compensation, we want heavy, okay? So we're going to do a proportional. Whenever I do satin stitches, I always use proportional style underlay. Only on like the stars where it's a pattern fill do I use fixed. And then the boldness of this is going to probably be about 25 on the pole comp, the value of it. And my underlay is going to be, I'm going to use a zigzag underlay. All right, so that should get nice and heavy for me. Okay, there we go. That looks better. Okay, so now let's go ahead and reposition everything. All right, now watch what I'm going to do here. To get this to lay out correctly, I'm going to need a little bit more work on each letter, okay? So let's go ahead and stretch this out so it gets over to the I. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on this, and I'm going to explode in the characters, where I could treat each letter as its own, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this M, and I'm going to hold my Shift key, and stretch it out a little bit so it matches the width of that letter. Click on the E, and what I'm going to do is just drag this one out so it comes out a little bit more this way, maybe more in this way, lift it up a little bit. So now I could affect each and every single letter on its own. Stretch this out. Bring it up. It's not the same. It's not the same font, but for what we're doing today, this will work. I would probably spend the time to really look for the correct font, especially when I'm charging somebody to do it. Okay, and then this I'm just going to pick up a little bit. You can see how nice. I'd rather do this then change all those nodes in a design. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to fix this. I'm going to click on these nodes. I'm just going to delete some things here and get rid of these stitches. The way you get rid of these stitches is you delete the nodes. Okay, so I'm just going to delete all these. There we go. I'm going to get rid of all these tools here. These are just stitch direction lines. We no longer need them. All right, so what we have is we have a specialized flow here. So what I would do on this is I would create this myself. So I'm going to go to column area, set my density 5.50, underlay to medium, pull compensation, we want proportional, and I'll go to 15 on here, and we'll just start creating this. So I'm just going to start from here, here. Oh, hold on. Let's do that again. I'm going to start from here instead. Right where it corners here. And I'm going to meet the shape of this, just right there. And now we'll do this part. You always want to work right across from yourself. So stay right on the edge. Don't have to place your nodes real close together. And for the last part, I'm just going to place one node here and one node here. Enter. And now we're going to shape that a little bit better. So I'm going to go to Select Object so I can edit it. And I'm just going to change my pole compensation down a little bit. I'm just going to no pole. And I'll move my nodes in. All right, let's move this. See, this looks a lot better already. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to put that behind that R, okay, so it kind of all blends. Those two parts I just created. I got a little bit of work to do with this one here. This will actually save me time doing it the way I did it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right-click on this one, add an insert a node. Actually, add a node. And I'll put one right here. I'm just going to place it right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fix these other ones. There we go. I think we're blending a lot better. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to resequence this. What I'm going to do is go to my Object Manager. And I'm going to go find these parts I just created, this one here and this one here. And I'm going to find where the R is. That's the I. Here, so I'm going to put these two above number 13. And that'll tuck this behind that R. There we go. Just got a little bit more editing to do with the stitches. Just move these in a little bit so it blends. I'm on stitch editing now. There we go. That looks a lot better. All right, now you got to look for issues too when you're creating a design. like this eye. Look how it's all bunched up here in the middle, and that's because my stitch directions are not set. I have no stitch direction information here. Well, there it is right there. It's telling it to go this way. So I'm going to bring this over this way, straighten that right out. Look at your image, look at your design, make sure you correct all those different issues. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to do an L, so I'm going to go to lettering. It should still be on there. I'm going to go to put an L in there, capital L, enter, set all our settings here. 5.50 stitches, pull compensation to proportional. What about a 25? And we used a zigzag underlay. Move that right into place. Bring it down. Resize it. Try to bring this up a little bit more. There we go. All right, and then finally the word day. So we're going to go ahead and do the A. I'm going to have to create that A a certain way because this swoosh is part of that A. So I'm going to go ahead and do the word day. So D-A-Y. And we highlight, set the color, hit enter. All right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to set this right here. We're going to shape it. All right, as good as possible there. And we're going to tell it to thread trim between each letter, lock stitch between each letter, and then we're going to set our settings, just like we did on the other one, 5.5 stitches per millimeter. Pull compensation to proportional at 20, a little bit heavier on the pull. I'm going to go to 35 on this. The smaller the letter, the heavier the pull compensation's got to be. And my underlay is going to be centered. There we go. Let's take a look at this. So let me take that pull compensation down just a little bit. May have gone too big. See, my A is looking like a beluga whale. So let's take it down to 30. It's a little better, and that's a lot of stitch direction issues here. It's this stitch direction line right here. And this one here should be going straight up and down. There we go. Same thing over here. These are all stitch direction commands you might have to edit. Like right here. See, this line, when it's crossed like this, it's telling the stitches to go this way. All we need to do is bring it like this. Matter of fact, a lot of the error message that you'll get at the bottom of the screen is dealing with direction lines. And just finding out where those direction line issues are will help you solve those errors. So I'm going to move this over, move the D over. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ungroup, explode into characters. And to fix this, I'm just going to move this over here. Delete that node. Don't need it. There's too many nodes. And get rid of the curve node. Yeah, that looks awful. I'm going to delete that one and just recreate that one. All right, so let's go ahead and Let's go ahead and resize the lettering here. Anybody have any questions? No questions? All right, so now to create these two, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to do what I did before. You go to column, and I'll just create this. So what I'll do is I'll start from here, do my little serifs, and then I'll just start my let me see, fix that. There we go. So let's go back into it. And just take your time at it. No. I want straight line nodes. And the problem is I'm doing this with a glide pad, and it's not really working for me. Yeah, that's not. All right, so let's go ahead and tuck that behind. I mean, definitely could have done that a lot better, but you get the idea, okay? So you got one question here. I have satin stitch fonts that I've purchased elsewhere. Is it possible to port those into the Liberty? The satin stitch fonts, whenever you have a font package that you bought that are DST, you can't load them into the lettering of the embroidery tab. You have to go to you'll have to go to into your home and go to your catalog and open them up as DST files, machine format, and then you'll have to bring them in one at a time, each letter one at a time. You can't write them into, so you'll have, if you're spelling out memorial, you'd have to bring in an M and then drag an E and then an R and spell out memorial, doing it that way. But that's when you buy purchased fonts, DST. Now, if you buy the fonts that are in Sierra on these digitized fonts, okay, you will get an email with a with the unlock code that unlocks those purchasable fonts. On your dongle key is every single one of those fonts, but once you get a password, it unlocks that font from your dongle key so you can use it, okay? So these are already in, but they're just locked until you purchase them. what are key things to know when creating letters to embroider on a cap? Key things to know when embroidering letters on a cap is density, pull compensation, and underlay. It's depends on the cap, really. Whenever I'm doing lettering for caps, I never go beyond 5.50 stitches per millimeter, and it's always a satin stitch. The underlay is pretty much going to be depends on the height of the letter. Like the height of these letters, when I click on, let me click on select object. The height of this letter here is roughly about 3/4 of an inch. My underlay on here only needs to be a center line underlay. Okay, it doesn't need to be zigzag. Zigzags would just cause me to have more density than I'm trying to have. I think I have zigzag on here by accident. I just want a center line underlay. That's all I need for that letter style. Okay, for that letter height and the pull compensation. Most of your technique on your ball caps is going to be the speed at which you embroider, stuff of that nature, the type of needle you're sewing. Whenever I'm sewing like a smaller, like the DAY, when I look at this D is actually, what's the size of this D? If I go to layout, it's just under a 1/2 inch. When I go to a 1/4 inch, I'm going to change out my needle to a 65 gauge 65 length by 9 gauge needle. That's going to allow me to put small penetration holes in my hat instead of a 75-11, which would put larger penetration holes. Okay, or an 80-12. Okay, I would use a 65-9 needle. So for not for this day, but for like this stuff right here, the height of this is so narrow. When I go to layout, it's not even a 1/10 of an inch. So I mean, this would be. I may have a lot of thread breaks on this. So I really you gotta be mindful of your stitch shapes and the height of them. The more length you have to stitches, the easier it is to sew. Most commonly, when you have stitches that are real close together, and the needle only travels a very short distance, you're going to have more thread breaks because the needle is actually cutting the thread as it goes through to sew the satin stitch. So you want to be mindful of that. Let's see. Hold on one second. All right. So the next question I got is, what's the difference between using the Truetype fonts and the digitized fonts? Well, the digitized fonts are already created for you. You don't have to convert. Okay. But when you have a Truetype font, the conversion is actually treating it like a graphic, so it converts the graphic for you to stitches, just like we did on the Memorial Day. We actually chose a Truetype font and brought it in. It sees it as a graphic and just converts it all to stitches. Okay, it's just another way to get fonts that you don't have in digitized. Like if you don't find it in the lettering of these pre-digitized fonts, then you can actually use a Truetype font. Okay, there's several thousands and thousands and thousands of fonts out there, and Sierra is not going to convert them all to stitches. So it's important for you to, if they don't have it, you can actually use your Truetype fonts for converting. So is there a certain high letter? Tammy Burns asked, so is there a certain high letter to where you change the needle? Whenever I have 1/4 inch lettering or anything, I don't really sew anything smaller than a quarter inch unless I'm using specialized software that can manage the density, pull compensation, underlay adequately. Okay, but whenever I have something 1/4 inch, I'll sew with a 65-9 needle because I want the crispness of the letter to be shown. The thicker the needle, okay, then you're putting bigger holes in your garment or your hat, and then you don't get the crispness of the crispiness of the edges to look nice and sharp. Okay, so the smaller the letter, the smaller the needle. Most of the stuff, Tammy, that you'll sew is going to be using the 75-11 needles. Okay, so because most of your stuff is not going to be in the realm of a 1/4 inch. The only time you're doing 1/4 inch lettering is if you're doing specialized monogramming on like a neck, like the collar of a dress shirt, or cufflink monogramming, or if you're doing real tight stitches inside of, like, if I want to put some kind of lettering inside the swoosh of this memorial design, then I would have to be mindful of the type of stitch, changing out that needle to a specialized needle. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? All right. Well, we covered a lot of territory here. I'm hoping that you've learned something today. Stay tuned for next week. We'll be doing hotfix error. We'll be walking through hotfix error, which is rhinestones and spangle. And then the week after that, we'll start getting back into it as far as like techniques and teaching you how to do different things in the software. Let's see, got another question here before we go. Let's see, hold on. Few questions. Will this be? Well, actually, Tammy, tomorrow you'll get an email and a link where you can download the recording of this Tech Talk. Okay, so be looking for that. Okay. All right, guys. Well, you have a great weekend. Thanks for showing up today, and thanks for all the questions. You guys have a great weekend. I'll talk to you in 2 weeks.